government should be looking at policies instead of being involved in industry and everything. It doesn't work. And it's about time Ghana realizes that it's not going to work for government to be involved in setting up companies and all those things. It doesn't work. Government should be contained with policies, and then private sector should be involved in setting up industries and everything. It works that way, and therefore you can attract more investments to come to the country, and it creates more employment. VRA and others are all government establishment. Let's give it out and divest to private sector, and then we inject money in there. And get the right people to do it. Greatco and others are all for private sector. Let's give them the money, get the qualified people, divest government from it, and let them do it. Other than that, electricity company is in a situation where we don't know, but that also must be divested and give it to private sector. Why are we still holding it when we don't have the money?
Well, sir, Otumfuo Osei to the second there. Why are we holding on to this if we just don't have the money? If the issues that ECG is confronted with are partly financial and issues of inefficiency, that's the proposal of the revered king. That, look, we should not continue to hold on to something we cannot effectively manage. But is that a consideration for where we are now and also what we are confronted with? Because for you and I, the fundamental expectation is that you would have stable power. And I bet that a number of you, in fact, we went to bed with so many of you sending us messages, just like me, we slept in darkness with all the discomfort and everything that comes with it. So what you are looking out for is stable power supply, because you are ready to pay. And I don't think the conversation is so much about tariffs. You know, I've had some persons this morning already having a conversation on our Facebook page that if the power would come and it will be stable and tariffs are moderate, then that's another conversation to consider. But in instances where you've already bought your credit, but you don't have power, and then it is the politics of it that's going on, sometimes very annoying. Welcome. This is Key Point on TV3. We're live on 3FM 92.7. Joining me in the studio is the Member of Parliament for the Bongo constituency. He is a member of the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament, Honorable Edward Bauer. Good morning, Mr. Bauer. Thank you very much for joining us here on Key Point.
Good morning, Alfred.
Your chairman, Honorable Samuel Atachia, promised that ECG will release a timetable about 3 weeks ago. He said very soon.
Are you putting me on the spot now?
Yeah, I want to find out.
Oh, sorry.
Because your people have been asking.
I didn't know that. Go on.
Yeah. So when is the timetable coming? Or you can't speak for your chairman?
No, but basically, good morning to your viewers. I think this question is more appropriate. You can appropriately address it to ECG because they are supposed to comply with.
No, but your chairman told us that we should expect a timetable.
Yes, but
very soon.
But we don't have it
after that meeting. That
yes, so that's the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is that so you have a situation where you have a utility, a state-owned utility that has decided to be very indisciplined. And so irrespective of whoever is involved and whoever is giving orders, they do not comply. You will recall that when we actually met them, that's about a week ago, thereabout, yes. The directive was that because we had listened to their conversations, and it was not only ECG, the whole state-owned entities.
Greatco, VRA,
PURC, everybody. Met everybody. And the final analysis was that the problem of the sector currently and why we are having power curtailment was because of mainly financial, because it's about 70% financial. And so it was very clear that, and in terms of prescriptions, as to how it was going to be resolved, it was not going to be very immediate. And so on the basis of that, the chairman made those orders and said, look, from your presentations to us, we have a clear understanding that you do not even know when you can resolve this issue, because it's an issue of money. Because most of the utilities could not meet the operational cost. So if that is the case, publish a timetable. They agreed that they will publish a timetable. It is on the basis of that the chairman then met the press and told the press that in the coming days, ECG was going to publish a timetable. But you and I know that they have not done it up to now. And I've always indicated that the very reason why they are not doing that is because they know the moment they publish a timetable, they have admitted that there's dumsor.
But you don't even have to publish a timetable for us to know.
No, but I'm just trying to tell you that
the consumer's experience tells it all.
You are looking at I don't know how to make the term to use, but you see, you want to know what are the indicators of official acknowledgement of dumsor. Beyond just the fact that the consumer himself is suffering from, because you had just indicated that you have not had lice the whole of last night and you had to sleep in the heat. Beyond just that particular, the individual experiences, the other evidence will be that officially the utility would publish a load shedding schedule. And so that is what they do not want. And it's more of a political reason than a technical reason.
Well, you let me bring in Counsel Lawyer Martin Pebu, who is seated by you, talk about the politics, as annoying as sometimes it would get. He's a private legal practitioner, and I say that he's one of the foremost human rights lawyers we have in this country. And as we go on in this conversation, I'll tell you why. Because, but for him, some people probably should have been in jail by now for standing as sureties for people. But he's also one of the leader of one of the individual bondholder groups. Lamati Pebu, good morning, welcome.
Morning, Mr. Kansi. Morning.
Oh, okay. Let me also acknowledge the presence of Mr. Kojo Poku Nsafwa, who is an energy analyst, but also, most importantly, the chair of the Baumia Manifesto Subcommittee, Baumia Campaign Team Subcommittee on Energy. The Baumia Campaign Team Subcommittee on Energy. Kojo Poku Nsafwa, good morning, welcome.
Good morning, but Alfred, for all these years, I don't know why my name, you decide to put a Nsafwa at the end. Everybody knows my name is Kojo Nsafwa Poku. I really don't know why everybody wants to put a Nsafwa at the end of the Poku.
So thank you for the correction. Kojo Nsafwa Poku.
You don't know that you are joking with a potential president.
Oh, please, my brother, tell him again that annoying. Everybody wants to put a Nsafwa at the end of the Poku. I don't know why.
Okay, Kojo, thank you for joining us, but thank you for the correction. I think it's important.
Thank you, my brother, and good morning. Good morning to your cherished viewers.
I see. Well, lawyer, you are a consumer, just like me. So when you hear the politics that goes around a situation like this, that because of the politics, even a very reasonable, commonsensical thing about if issuing a timetable is subjected to politics. And so if I issue a timetable, I'm only confirming what the people are going through. The ultimate experience that the consumer goes through is what we are looking at. Regardless of whether you issue a timetable or not. People know a certain pattern of when their lights go off and when it comes on. The chair of this Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament makes an emphatic statement that, look, we have met ECG, we've met Gridco, we've met VRA. We've given them a directive. And so this directive is not even coming from just the demand of PURC or even the consumer. If the subcommittee on mines and energy of Parliament would give a directive until date, we don't have it, then what else has to be done? I mean, for the consumer or from the consumer's perspective. Counsel.
Yeah, so it's nothing new. It just tells you, reiterates the statement by Socrates that politicians are crooks. That's it. That's it. crooks and are busy what? Gaslighting us. Because this is something that, as you said, commonsensically, this dumsor timetable should have been out. But I see how they keep making it look like rocket science, shifting blame. ECG keeps saying that they don't get enough notice from Gridco, so it's impossible to get a timetable. Then you find Matthew Opoku Prempeh come to insult us after we've paid him with our taxes, right? And he even still date has not had the courtesy to render an unqualified apology to us, right? And it goes on and on and on. So the basic thing is about the integrity deficit in our politicians, both left and right, NDC, MPP. That's the main problem. That's the main problem. Yes, Honorable.
Don't use the same brush to paint us.
Honorable, we voted you guys out in 2016 because you were performing bad, except that with hindsight, we've seen that your levels are better than this current administration. But in 2016, we were very angry at JM. JM didn't appear strong, except that history is proving that he's better than Akufo-Addo. That's all. But both parties, you are just all bad. That's the plain truth. Because if you guys were that good by now, Ghana should not be what it is today. We should have been far, 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 far ahead. Hey, we give you all the resources, the freebies. You get the best food, the best accommodation, fuel. So many things for free, yet you can't think. You are still so excessively greedy and grabbing left, right, center of your hands and your legs, everything. That is where the main problem is. That is the corruption. It's the corruption that politicians have an insatiable appetite for the public wealth. They appropriate it for themselves. That's what it is. That's what this whole thing is about. So what they're saying is that if this timetable comes out, then it means that they are sinking themselves, because election 2024 is just in the corner, 7th December, right? So that's the main thing. Because I followed the conversation on Joy FM about 3 days ago. Yeah, they brought, I think there's a Kojo Puku was also on it, right? Another person, and all of them, like you said, Honorable said, now we're seeing that the dumsor problem is largely financial. Yeah, the 70% is being quoted around. That is largely financial. And so that is a throwback to what? 2016, when Baumia was all over the place. Oh, our dumsor problem is a financial problem. That's, in other words, generation. Because there's a lot of gas. If we pay the Nigerians, we'll get gas. If we pay the Nigerians, we'll get gas. You remember there was the independence anniversary celebration, the president's speech that, they had negotiated with the IPPs and reduced the monthly payments.
That was the State of the Nation address.
Independence celebration, the State of the Nation.
He mentioned that they had renegotiated the debt owed the IPPs from the reported 1.7 billion to 1.3 billion.
Okay, and that's the same.
Was mentioned.
Good, and that the monthly payments coming down from 70-something million to 43 million.
That was the State of Nation.
Yes. Now it's standard that these IPPs have not yet signed. They've not signed off. Can you imagine? They've not signed off. Yes. So what it is that it's been verbal, right? But nobody signed off the agreement. So you see that they kept saying that I wish Jinapo were here, John Jinapo were here. So I said anything I say is subject to what he comes to say, because at least he's a ranking member, so we can trust that he will bring out more information than the people in government will want to do, right? It's standard that agreement has not been signed off. It's just a verbal agreement. I know when it's verbal, anything can happen.
So let me take your thoughts quickly on this Otumfuo Osei Tutu II's proposal that, look, if the issue is largely financial, then why don't we just look at the private sector coming in again? Let's go back to the path of PDS that left our fingers bent a few years ago.
Yes, with due respect to Otumfuo, I largely disagree. The problem is not about the model, whether it's in private hands or in public hands. It's about the integrity deficit. It's that greed. It's the stealing syndicate. The one Kennedy Japan talked about, that the members of this administration are stealing us blind, stealing like there's no tomorrow. That is where the problem is. It's not about public or private. When PDF came, you know we have over 1 billion cedis with them. PDF took our money. It's over 1 billion. PDS, when they took over, the revenues they collected, you know, they've not returned it. We've been making noise. I don't know where it is. Honorable, have we received the money back from PDF? It's still with them.
No, but where's
that money is still with them?
Any attempt to try and retrieve that money? Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament.
No, so let's put it in perspective. So PDS worked between March and October, right? And within that period, they were working like any other distributor that would work. Obviously, they were paying the players within the value chain. So even though the amount of money they would have received within that period is what is talking about, 1 billion, but they would have definitely been paying the utilities. The challenge we have rather had was the fact that, see, from March till October, the amounts that they collected, that it should be subjected to what they call it, audit, for us to know as to how much was collected. How did they do the payments to the various utilities? I don't know if that's making sense.
Yes.
Yeah, so it is more of accounting for the money. I don't know what I'm making sense.
So
I'm just, because I know you just wanted a response from me.
Yeah, good. And so when you see somebody,
the lack of accountability.
when you see somebody running from an audit, what do you think it is?
So if it's the lack of accountability, what has been then done to ensure that that accountability element is restored for us to be able to get the full details of how these monies were expended? I think that's a fundamental issue. But hold on your thoughts on it more. Let me bring in Kojo Poko. So on this one, this is one that he, as well, until his appointment to the Bamia campaign team, had written quite extensively on it. Kojo, now this is the proposal that the revered king is making, that with all of this, it is, if the problems are largely financial, then if government doesn't have the money, as we have seen now, bring in the private sector, which has the money to be able, or to raise the money, to be able to address the challenges that ECG is faced with. Find out your quick thoughts on this matter.
Well, good morning again. Look, it's very unfortunate when people set their own question and answer them as well. This largely financial, I think we've gone past it. Everybody wants to talk about it. Martin Kweku all of a sudden wants to now talk about things not being record signs, talking about technicalities he does not understand. The last time I was in the studio with him, when I was just speaking mere English, he told me I'm not a lawyer. How can I be speaking about law when I'm not a lawyer? He is now talking about technicalities he doesn't understand, saying that it's a simple matter of producing a timetable. Does he know what goes into that process to give a timetable? And he's sitting next to somebody who was part of a committee that did that exercise. So at least he can educate him privately to let him know that it is not just a mere timetable. There is a lot that goes into that thing before. You understand? So what you have to understand is that this timetable issue, let me address that and I think we can move on. You have seen the documentation that have gone to show that whenever GRIDCO, who wields the power and manages the grid, informs ECG, ECG has come out to say that they give them about 1 hour to 3 hours notice when they are having challenges with the frequency on the. You've seen that document, Alfred, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And that document goes to tell us that there isn't enough time, and ECG themselves have challenges. You remember the letter GRIDCO wrote to the minister, where ECG has come out to say that, look, they disagree with GRIDCO in part and in large, at points when they have asked them to shed load. I have explained this over and over. There are two concessionary areas in Ghana. There is NETCO and there is ECG. ECG has their own power purchase agreement within which they operate, and they have basically arranged and signed off in agreement with these power producers. If at any point in time, your people you have signed an agreement with is generating far in excess of what you need for your concessionary area, then somebody calls you to tell you that, look, I know that you need maybe 2,000 megawatts for your concessionary area. The power purchase agreement, those that you have signed with, the IPPs, the independent power producers, are producing 3,000. But you only need 2,000 that you signed the agreement, please manage load of, let's say, 200 megawatts. ECG is saying that why should I manage the load? Because my contractual obligation is being met and I should be able to get power for my customers. So look, there is that letter that went from Gridco to ECG, why ECG is not complying with Gridco's directives. And the minister is trying to resolve that matter. But this issue of money, and please, I was not on any phone call or any radio program 3 days ago where everybody agreed that it was by and large about money. This thing where everybody wants to now drag it as money, let's leave it there and let's move on to the substantive question that you asked. Yes, look, private sector participation has been long talked about. When we didn't go through PDS, some of us were of the full understanding that after PDS was abrogated, the government will have a second bite, learning from the mistakes of PDS. For me, I think there are two instances that led to the failure of PDS. When the government said that there should be 51% Ghanaian shareholdership, okay, the money required, you needed about $510 million to be invested in ECG or for 5 years. And if you now say that Ghanaians should own 51%, it means that Ghanaians have to cough up over $250 million in 5 years. There was nobody and no institution in Ghana with that money. Okay, so what happened was that you now find out that they intend to bring in certain companies who also didn't feel why they should now invest the money, why they didn't have the majority shareholding. And it's natural for every company not to want to invest money if they are not the majority shareholder. So I think that was enlarged. But look, private sector works. I don't know why somebody would think that whether it's in public or private hands, it is integrity or whatever that causes that. No, private sector works because we as private sectors, when we run institutions, we run it well. Yes, we might make decisions that people don't agree with. It's just to show that the institutions that the great king mentioned are the ones, Gridco, VRA. I think Gridco, because there is only one Gridco transmission company, it will be difficult to sell it off. What we could look at is some level of equity participation from private sector in the minority space and maybe give operatorship to private sector. There is other aspect of VRE. Yes, that one too, maybe you can look at the COFOR model where we basically list some of these companies on the stock exchange and only diversify about minority stake of 49%. The only problem is that before you can list any of these companies on the stock exchange, the company should be structured well, so at least it makes profit in 3 years on a row. You cannot list a loss-making company on the stock exchange. So it's a good approach. I have talked about diversity, as Alfred, you rightly said. I have talked about diversifying most of these government institutions for so many years. And there are so many institutions that I can list that I don't see why government owns them 100%. It just doesn't make sense.
I see. Well, in the midst of all of this and the conversation that goes on, and thank you for initial the statement on this matter, and I'll bring in Edward Bauer, because you see, whatever the technicalities that goes into the production of timetable or the otherwise, just like a consumer, like Martin Bebu and myself, we would not want to see the various players fighting in public as to who has to do what and who is not doing what. The fundamental thing is that we want to be at least giving a certain modicum of respect when it comes to notification, so that people would know what to do with their lives, and businesses as well. So what is all this?
So thank you very much.
Then we'll move to what else.
So thank you very much. I've always had a disagreement with Kojo on the issue of this timetable and the position of ECG in all this. And I'm happy that he had acknowledged that at least when we had power challenges between 2014 thereabout to 2015, I happened to have been part of the committee that was looking and also dealing with load, management schedule. You see, as a distributor, you can have a general outlook and know that, oh, for this month, consistently I was getting X amount of power, which is lower than what I should ordinarily get for my consumers. So I use that as my indicative data. And I then tend to draw a schedule, grouping my consumers into various sections. So that if I know that on the average I've been shedding about 50 megawatts, so I know that I will put my consumers in those sections, so that any time there's the need to shed load, I know that today it is Agbogloshi that I need to put off. Tomorrow, if Grico tells me that I need to shed load, I know that the next time is going to be maybe Malata. And the next time, if they say I should shed load, maybe then it comes to Dansuma. Then maybe it comes back to Agbogloshi. I don't know where I get in the point. So you do that. Now, if in the course of that, assuming that it is the time for Agbogloshi to go off, but we have had enough power to be able to cover everybody, then Agbogloshi gets lice. If it is that we may be shedding more than the amount that Agbogloshi can take, they may add the next community that is supposed to come or go off. So that's how they do it. Now, the argument Kojo has been making, and I believe that he's making this point because that is the concern raised by ECG, that they are not giving enough notice. On daily basis, Gridco by 4 o'clock would have given you a supply outlook. Some of you who go on my wall, you see that I've shared some of the supply outlook on my wall. So they tell you that we are expecting, because usually during the day, Gridco would have spoken to all the generators and know, are you available or you are not available? I get the point. Then they will look at the demand that has been there over a period of time. Then they know that based on this, the supply cannot meet the demand. So I will tell the distributors, whether it is NETCO, whether it is ECG, that shared X amount of power. And then you get it. So they tell you that. The basis for, ECG having to give a timetable is that, because we all are facing challenges, isn't it?
Yes.
We should share the challenges equitably. I shouldn't have a situation where consistently, maybe, Alfred, your area will be off and every time my area is on. The only way to avoid that is through a timetable. But because ECG is not, normally when Gridco tells ECG that, look, shared X amount of power, and based on the logic that Kojo Poku is indicating, that ECG says, I have PPAs with companies that meet my demand. So on the basis that I'm not going to shed load, then they decide to put all their consumers on. If they put all their consumers on, Gridco, who is the systems controller, will sit down and look at the system and say that, look, my demand is outstripping my supply, and therefore it's compromising my system. And usually when it outstrips it, you then have what we call the national blackout. You know, the whole country goes off. To be able to avoid that, they then will decide to take off somebody, some group of people from the grid.
Okay.
And usually they do not sit down there to tell you that, today Alfred went off. Because for them, they want to provide, they want to protect the integrity of their network.
Sure.
So they'll dump you. So they can dump you today, dump you tomorrow, dump you tomorrow night. That's why you have in an area, you can have somebody having lights off continuously for about 3 days, 4 days. Meanwhile, another area, you are having this. And that is what Gridco wanted to avoid. And that's why he did this. But quick one. The lack of supervision from the ministry, because in all this, in the ministry superintend over these agencies, you have a crisis. Usually what you will expect from a sector minister is to call all the agencies involved in that crisis to come and sit around the table.
And are you saying that is not happening?
If it is happening, they'll not be reporting. If it was happening, and then usually you will have a picture of what the problem is. Then on the strength of that, you give directives as to how the agency should behave within the crisis. The fact that you have Gridco writing to the minister that this is the problem tells you that they have not sat down to have a conversation. That's the point. And so if you see the situation, and then the point he makes about the fact that, ECG has a concession with, or maybe PPAs with other, IPPs. And from their PPAs, they know that they have enough power to meet their demand. The truth of the matter is that the fuel situation that we have has hit mainly the IPPs. And when I use the word, because they do the thermal. For Akosombo, sorry, when I use Akosombo, I mean VRA. Yes. VRA does not have PPA with any distributor. Indeed, it is one of the problems VRA has always had. They do not have PPAs with any distributor. So on the basis of that, and meanwhile, in this crisis, we are depending heavily on VRA because of the dams. Look, VRA had projected that by the first quarter of this, this year, they were supposed, Hydro was supposed to contribute about just 62% of their total, supply of power. So, you know, because they have both thermal, solar, and they have solar, thermal, and then hydro. And so they said that, look, based on our own projection, by the first quarter, hydro should constitute about 62% of the total power that will supply into the grid. Do you know how much they have done this as the first quarter? 75. The reason why they are doing 75 is because of the fact that they are forced to generate more power coming from the hydro. So ECG cannot sit down and say, because I have PPAs that cover a number of plants, therefore I know that I have sufficient power, so I would not shed load. That is simply a very erroneous conclusion to come to. But to come to the Nana's issue, because I just wanted to address his case, to come to the Nana's issue, respectfully, I think that I heard him. He said, look, because we are not being able to handle some of these things, VRA, other things should be sold out to private sector or given out to private sector to manage. Look, my brother, well, there's a reason.
Permit me, before you go on, I've just got this reminder, and it's important, because the last time you were here in the studio with Kojo Poku, right? The last time you were here. And I asked a question about any indication of when this was going to end. Kojo Poku had indicated that, Kojo, you said that you were privy to some conversation that suggested that by the end of the month of March, this whole power situation, the dumsor and all of that was going to be over. I recall that because I asked you that question in the studio 3 weeks ago when you were here. We're still experiencing these power outages. What's happening? Where did you get that information from? On mute for me. On mute.
Hello, I have no muted.
I'm hearing. I'm just going back to that statement
what I'm
you
saying
made.
is that the people sending you those text messages have been going around following me on every interview trying to get that question. Look, I'm not a government appointee.
But you are a member of...
I'm not even any... Oh, hold on. Let me land, please. I'm not a government appointee. I can only talk about the information I'm privy to. And as the chairman of a manifesto committee, what I am looking at is professing solutions for future, not for current. So yes, I am privy to certain conversation. There was meetings in Bukias, in the Pediasi. There was meetings the following Monday. There have been subsequent meetings by the ministry and the presidency. And the assurances that have come out is that they put measures in place and the situation is being resolved. Look, by and large, the situation has improved. It has improved. I don't think anybody would say that.
You didn't say the situation was going to improve. You said it would end.
Well,
that's what you said.
Know, please, I know what I said. I'm not walking it back. I'm telling you that I am not the guy sitting on the chair. I'm the guy who just hear and privy to conversations. So if based on the conversation I know, I say that we will not enter May. Sorry, we will not enter April with this situation. And we are still in it to an extent. But a much improved situation. It means that it's a progress, it's an ongoing progress. Okay? So look, the point that my brother made.
I just wanted a quick response to that. So just to put it in perspective, that the statement you made is not a reflection of the facts and the reality that the people are faced with right now.
It's not entirely true. Alfred, I don't like when you put words in the mouth. It's not entirely true.
No, I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm only saying that you said the situation was going to end. We're experiencing it right now.
Some people, in much areas, the situation has improved. It's only a small area that we have a few. Look, 3 days ago, we had a trip at the Tema. Hold on.
Could you, if you say it's a small area, what do you mean?
Stop that. We all have
small.
What do you mean?
When you ask a question, let me land, please. 3 days ago, I have always said that we have a mechanical, electrical that we are managing. When you have a moving process, anything can happen. Look, 2 days ago, there was a trip in Tema. When these things happen, things can happen. So look, yes, there are challenges that were in the system, improved massively. Then every now and then, you still get 1 or 2 problems that happen, which is creating a few pockets of problems. But it has improved much. It has improved massively. Okay? So I'm saying that some areas are having...
Kojo, well, if you say it's improved massively, on what basis? Because I'm talking specifically based on the experiences of the people. So if you are saying this situation has improved, where's the data?
Yes, but
where's the data?
Of the people is saying that look, Alfred, I am on about 18 regional platforms. 18, which is almost, I can say that on terms of the party platforms, because I went around and campaign, I still keep the campaign platforms that I'm on. On these platforms, when the lights start going off badly in those regions and those areas, everybody complain on those platforms. And the reason how I gauge it is the complaint of light outages on these platforms. And I monitor my WhatsApp greatly. And I'm saying that pockets of Greater Accra, by large, is where the problem is in the last week.
No, well,
I'm
actually,
sure that one is being looked at.
Well, I tell you what, that's not the case. Not just pockets of Greater Accra. Before we went to bed last night, areas like Koforidia experienced power outages. We had information as well, some parts of Western region. Also, we got information from areas in Central region as well. So because you have indicated that if I hold you to strict proof on some of the things you say, you will tell me that you are not a government appointee. So I'm not going to.
I don't have a problem with that.
But I'm just telling you, there's not a Greater Accra problem.
Well, I don't have a problem with that because by and large, you know that there's also localized problems. So the localized problems are there. So by the fact that lights go off, people should understand that lights always go off in Ghana. I've always said this. So they are localized problems.
But, Mr. Lau, you know what?
Instances where there are challenges that manage, which is the lowest.
Okay. You see, this thing about localized fault, let's not deceive the people because, if they know if it's a localized fault or not. What is happening, does it constitute
are you saying that there are no localized problems?
So, could you hold on a bit for me? Yes.
So, you see, usually because the energy sector looks a bit technical, people are always confused with terms. Localized problem. This is just this, that. Look, localized problems cannot permeate all over at the same time. Localized problem simply means that, like, for example, in my neighborhood, my transformer is messed up. And so all the load on that particular transformer would have gone off. And ordinarily, with localized problems, unless it's a very major one, within 30 minutes, because you normally will have teams, they have their operational teams that go around. You normally will have between 30 minutes and 1 hour, they will have resolved it. You cannot be telling me that a greater portion of the country, or maybe let's even say a lot of areas within the country, not even just in one area, suddenly all will have localized problem that will expand to say, let's say about 6 hours. I mean, it tells you that basically it is not an issue of localized problem.
I see.
2, you see, when the last time I came here, when I was drawing the attention that, look, because it is finance, the challenge is that government has other competing needs. And so that 1st April deadline, or maybe I don't know, the end of March deadline that was given was being too ambitious. Because I didn't know where they were going to get the money from. Particularly at a time when ECG itself had become so indisciplined and was not making the cash waterfall mechanism work. So I was wondering where this was going to come from. And we have been proven right that, look, we still have this load shedding going on. So I empathize with him. You see, all their people, all their people have run away. They don't talk again. He's the only one who goes around talking. The reason why he's the only one going around talking is because he is desperate to see his presidential candidate win election. And he wants to see how to diffuse this. But the people who really are in the sector have all decided not to talk. The only time the energy minister decided to talk, he decided to insult Ghanaians. That's the only time. Because he simply cannot address the issue. And all of us know what the issues are. The PRC's document that has come out even makes cases even worse. That you have a situation where a state distributor of power can look into the eyes of Ghanaians and lie.
Okay, but
so I'm just because we have not come there yet.
Yes.
But I'm just trying to say that basically Kojo Boko was being too ambitious. All of us make mistakes in our targets, And then he should accept that, I mean, his deadline didn't meet, or maybe he was giving wrong report. And so the wrong report that they gave him was what he came and said here. So, I mean, that's okay. That's okay.
Okay, but Kuka, on this Otumfuo Osei Tutu proposal, you were going on that path before I heard.
Sorry.
Let's move on.
Can I quickly? I'm not desperate for my candidate to win. I know my candidate is the best candidate Ghanaians are going to vote for.
Okay.
So I'm not desperate.
Right. Okay, yes.
Okay, so the Otumfuo's thing. So back to the Otumfuo's case. You see, I was saying that the whole idea of bringing the private sector into the, into the space, into the energy space, has been something that has been conceived even during the 1990s under the power sector reforms. So everybody understands that. But it is also important for everybody to also understand that the state must have a role to play in that. And not only on regulation, but as a participant within the sector. If for nothing at all, for national security issues. Can you imagine that you have all your generating plants, everything in your sector in the hands of private sector? And most often than not, this private sector, yes, you can have Ghanaians, but you can also have foreigners. Can you imagine what will happen if one day they decide to hold you hostage, that they are not going to generate power? How are you going to get power? So for national security issues, what was said was that, look, yes, let private sector play a role, but whilst they play a role, let the state also play a role. And that's why VRA, and for that matter, other agencies are playing those roles. And I respectfully disagree with the king when he says that things like VRA and other things all should be given to the private sector. That will be suicidal. And there's no country that will advise you to do it. That's the first thing. Two, the issue of GridCo. Issue of GridCo cannot go to a private sector. You see, and there was a reason why GridCo was taken out of VRA. You are the state. And because you are the state, you will have to sit there and control all the various systems. So GridCo, and the reason why they took GridCo away from VRA was that VRA was the one doing the transmission. So they realized that will not bring competition into the field, because VRA was a player, and again, to be a transmitter. So assuming that they were supposed to they are supposed to transmit power to, say, distribute a bulk consumer like ECG. The truth of the matter is that VRO will want to dispatch its own power first before they go to the private sector to do, because they are the one controlling it. So as part of the reforms, that's the World Bank, the power sector reform that was supported by the World Bank, they said that take at GridCo and let it be independent, but controlled by the state. But now they gave a guideline as to how they dispatch power. And the way they dispatch power based on economic basis, the cheapest first, in a way to ensure that the end user also has cheaper electricity or affordable electricity to me. So VRA, ECG then, GridCo then sits down and operate and then dispatch all the power, both private sector and government sector. But there's a format. It's not based on their whims and caprices, but it's based on the cheapest power that is dispatched first. So that's a format. So let's not contemplate even the idea that private sector should come and control our national transmission system. No, that is a very dangerous thing. So I agree that private sector should play a part. And I'll give you a typical example of where this thing is working. Under the NDC, beyond just the compact that came, that the MPP came and bastardized through the PDS, you've heard of Enclave Power. Enclave Power is a private sector distributor. And their duty is to distribute power to the free zones board, the free zones area. So all the companies under the free zones area are not hooked to ECG. They are hooked to Enclave Power. And Enclave Power is a private sector organization, distributor. And this was one of the things that the NDC was planning to do. That look, beyond just the PDS coming in, gradually we're going to have competing players within the distribution sector. Such that, like if you go to, say, the US or the UK, I can choose today that I'm using this distributor, and tomorrow, because their services are no good, I switch to another distributor. And that is the plan that the NDC did, and we started it with the Enclave Power. And you can see that in all these conversations, Enclave Power has never had an issue with us, because they are running their thing and they are being accountable for the power that they give to us.
I see. Well, let me bring in Ben Boakye. He's the Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP. Ben Boakye is attending the IMF spring meetings in the US graciously. He's a big man. He's joining us on Zoom from the closing moments of the IMF spring meetings. Mr. Boakye, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us here on the key point. First off, I know this is Otumfuo Osei Tutu II's proposal is one that, at least the two people I have in studio have all disagreed that this proposal is not one to consider at this time. But if you look at even the demeanor and the tone, the context in which he put it, it's born out of the frustration that all of us are feeling, that if the situation is going on and we, the consumers, are not really having a headway of what's happening to ECG and Gridco, then let's look at privatization as well, if that's a solution to this problem. Find out your thoughts on this.
No, I think that position is a position that the country itself took to bring in the private sector more than 10 years ago. And it happened that we couldn't progress to actually finalize the private sector participation in a way that it was envisioned. So it's not off to bring it back, for us to discuss. Perhaps, what we could entreat the king to do is to also be part of the monitoring of such a process to ensure that it's not a repetition of PDS, but a proper structure that brings in a private sector with capacity to actually invest and be able to lessen the burden of government and the people of Ghana, through recurrent, subsidy of the sector, and also the abuse of resources that we see in the value chain. So I think it's a good call, but it's way more than that. If you look at what happened with PDS, we would perhaps not be spending the billions that we are doing today if we had been able to deliver on that process, except that we were not sure because of the structure and the people we handed ECG to, rather than a capable company that can actually deliver value. We looked for politicians and handed over the asset to them, only to realize that even the guarantees, the insurance guarantees that they provided were not competent security.
But you have others also make the point that, is that to say that only the private sector can deliver the efficiency that is needed, especially when the state has managed ECG over the period, and then now we are seeing all of these inefficiencies? Is it that it's only the private sector that can deliver the efficiency and the financing that ECG needs at this time?
I think ECG has been managed for many decades, particularly in the era when government was the owner of the value chain. So government generated power, government procured fuel, government transmitted the power. So government controlled the entire value chain. And therefore, if government couldn't pay the generator, it's the same government. If government couldn't pay the transmitter, it was the same government. But when we decided to bring in the private sector, it was urgent that we put in place a strategy that improves liquidity situation in the sector. And that required that the company that manages the cash flow or receives money from consumers actually does a good job. And that is why it became urgent that we, put ECG at a place where they could actually deliver that value. And that's what necessitated the whole PDS arrangement, if you recall. So with the private sector involved in generation, they are always going to demand their money, and I'm sure you can testify to the recurrent demand from the IPPs for debt owed to them. So we can't continue to do things at business as usual as if there's no urgency. It is not the state, only the state generating power. We have other private entities in there, and therefore making sure that the liquidity situation is improved or responds to the needs of the industry is critical.
But how about take out the political interference, and then also all of this, the extreme politics in the power sector, and sometimes even having people who don't have the right competence in there, and everything will be fine? Is that one as well that can be done? without necessarily having to resort to the private sector for correcting all the ills in the public sector?
I mean, so you're trying to deal with a problem permanently. And the way to deal with it is to ensure that you insulate politics from it. We'd go into political cycles every 4 years at least. And therefore, you cannot guarantee, how things will go with another political context. So what you want to do is to ensure that at all times, the generation, distribution, transmission of electricity is treated as business, all right? And that is why it is important that we isolate the long hand of government from the business and ensure that it runs that way. So it's not enough to say that today we have, a good appointment. We have more competent hands handling it. You never can read what the next political leader would do. And that is where the threat comes in. But if you want to treat it as business and isolate politics from it, our understanding is that you want to bring in the private sector so that the state can regulate them, for us to achieve the benefits that we are actually looking for the people, rather than playing dual role of regulating and also doing the business.
Okay, I see. And Mr. Bacho, hold on a bit for me, because at least we've had one person amongst us who sort of agrees with this proposal by Otumfuo Osei Tutu II that we can consider it now, taking into consideration all the issues.
So put it this way, I think that there has been the point I was trying to make to you was that, look, I don't have a problem, and that's, I told you, it's part of the power sector reforms, so that they come and play a role. But I'm saying that we cannot, as a nation, say that government should just stay off.
Yeah,
right.
Because for security reasons and strategic reasons, you cannot. I get the point I mean.
Indeed.
So, yes, VRA can be there, but let other players, private sector, come in with their capital and also be part of it and then compete.
Yes.
So, don't forget me, I have, when PDS came, I was involved in, representing some people, so I understand a bit about the transaction. What we are saying is that, listen, this thing is not about private sector or public. It's about the human beings. You have crooks. Baumia sat down there and changed the guarantee, right, from bank to insurance. And it's been one of the big problems. So it's the human beings. It's the integrity deficit. It's not about public or private. Look at China. What didn't the US and Co say? Look at China. You know how much the Chinese government is involved in business? Sino, Hydro, etc. They have large companies owned by the government. Yet today, look at them. Are they not number 2 in the world? They will soon overtake the US in terms of the size of their economy. So it's the human beings. You go try corruption in China. You see how they execute them, etc. So it's the Ghanaian. The thievery is the problem. It's not about public or private. It's the thievery. So let's not shift around. You see, Honorable mentioned, when I was in school, the time they were doing this matter of taking, restructuring the system so that VRA will not control the distribution. I remember the lectures. There was a big guy from the, VRA. He came to give the lecture, blah, 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 so they will change, and then Gridco will be in charge of just,
The transmission.
Transmission, wheeling charges. So, like you said, the cheapest. And that time, when you read natural resources, it's a course. Which Kata teaching us so everything will go well. They brought PURC people to come and lecture. How many? Over 25 years on. The same problem. Please, you ask Free Chikata. That's his area. Lecture. You lecture lawyers. So when Kojo Safu tells me that I don't know anything about this area, it's laughable. More than 25 years ago, I read natural resources, and these things were things that were what? Constant. We wrote exams on those. And in practice, I've seen a number of cases. So that one is different. My involvement in this debate is different from the example he was giving. He was trying to espouse a legal principle that didn't exist. But what I am talking about is factual, that ECG can give that timetable. Please, could you stop deceiving us that it's so complex that there can be no timetable? I'm telling you that you don't understand anything if you say no timetable can be produced. Did you hear what Honorable told you? You do the averages. It's common sense. You don't need to be an engineer. You just should know. Question number 1. For how many months now? Do we have a deficit in generation or not? Answer. Do we have a deficit in generation or not? So if you have a deficit, what do? You can't plan. This is what you call rocket science. Master, we've been in this industry for about 25 years. So I don't know whether 25 years ago you had read natural resources and this sector, how it's to be structured.
Well,
you should answer 25 years ago.
I got a message from Salaga that the lights just went off in Salaga, Mohammed, and then also one of our viewers in the Netco area, also that's a Northern Electricity Distribution Company. They had issued a notice, and Kojo, this is to you, because the briefing may be the platform that you are on. I would assume that you said that these are.
I wish you could have put it on the platform. Let them know.
That gives you information. Well, they might be very limited in giving you that information of what's happening across the country. I'll tell you what. Netco has also put out.
Alfred.
Yes,
Alfred,
I'll come to you.
Well, Alfred,
I'll come to you.
I think it's very unfair. Alfred.
I'll come to. No, I'm not going to curtail you. I'll come to you.
Let me land.
No, I'll come to you. I'm not going to curtail your commentary. I'll come to you. I'm just showing. No, I'm just showing for viewers something. This one says we have from Netco. There's actually a notice that areas were going to go off today, and as we speak, some of the areas we understand are experiencing power outages, and some are going to go off between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Yendi, Bimbila, Gushin, Salaga,
that was yesterday.
Pasa,
19th. It was 19th yesterday.
Bandai, Ketekrachi, Chindre, Saboba, Zabzugu, and its surrounding communities.
Yeah.
Friday, 19th.
This, according to the notice, will enable Gridco to carry out maintenance work at the substation. So this is not limited to an Accra situation, as you suggested earlier. Kojo?
Okay, so Alfred, can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly.
Well, before I get to this substation that you just brought up, look, I think as a host of this program, it's unfair when you let Martin Kweku sit on this program and call people thieves, stealing, crooks. It's not fair. He cannot call the vice president of this country crook without any evidence.
I don't think he made direct reference to the vice president when he made that statement.
No, please, you can play back the video. He did. He should retract.
I'm not.
No, wait.
No, he did.
As a politician, it's a general statement. Politicians.
No, wait. No, because you are making a categorical statement. Kojo, the only time that Martin Kweku made direct reference to the vice president was a changing of the clause.
Yeah. From
the statement he made.
Please. Let's not
the statement he made about
you can
crooks.
Play back that tape. Martin Kweku called the vice president a crook. Please.
No, hold on. I think he's listening to something else. So you.
How am I listening to something else? I'm listening to this very program.
Hold on.
Martin Kweku
because we were all here. So if he said that, I would hold him to strict.
I think that.
I think you are confusing.
Then you should,
yes, but no, hold on.
A drowning man will not to frost.
Hold on.
Initially, he said stealing. As a lawyer, you can't say stealing without evidence.
No.
What I say?
He said he did not make direct reference to the vice president when he said.
As a politicians are crooks.
So okay. Since you are saying that we should go back, we will. So you proceed with that.
But you see, I think that maybe Kojo, the statement he made was that he first quoted Socrates and said that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes. Yes. Then
right now, when he talked about Dr. Baumia single-handedly changed the guarantee, that statement before he preceded that statement, he said that the crook. Dr.
No, that's not what he said. That's not what he said. Maybe somebody is sending you.
When dry bones are mentioned,
maybe somebody is sending you something, but that's not what he said. We can say
when dry bones are mentioned.
That is not what he said. Let's proceed. So don't worry. If you're talking about going back to play it, we will. Yes. So proceed with your point.
Okay, so please, let me make a point, okay? And I think you just saw an announcement from Netco saying that they are going to work on a substation. And somebody is trying to say that it's load management. In that statement you read, clearly states that there is a work to be undertaken on a major substation by Gridco, and a notice has been given to the people in the area.
So they've given them a timetable. They've given them a timetable. Yeah.
Yes, but that is not the same conversation we are having, Honorable Bauer. We are having about a load management problem across the country. And I went on to say that we are not able to give a timetable and enlarge in the evenings. I have realized that the system is stable. And you're saying that somebody is saying that the NETCO area is off and there's the notice that has come out. But the notice says that there's a substation work to go on. Are we saying that maintenance don't go on in this country? Are we saying that local problems doesn't exist in this country? Let's be honest with ourselves. Let's try to paint everything with the same brush. This is where the problem is. You see, I have admitted, and you see, my brother Edward Bauer said that, oh, I'm admitting I'm the only one talking because I'm desperate for my candidate to win. I'm not. The truth needs to be told that, yes, we've admitted that there are challenges. It is being solved. It's a work in progress. It has improved by and large. But this thing where every little problem is being put out there as if it's the same. And clearly, the notice you put up says substation maintenance. How is that the same? But anyway, let me go back to an earlier submission my brother Ben did. You know, my brother Ben now is a big man. He's in the US looking very fresh.
Oh,
on this conversation, I think there is two of us, myself and Ben, that agree on the privatization. Alfred, you said that only one person agrees. I also agree. But the thing is that there's a lot that needs to be done before something like Gridco and VRA can be privatized. And I have said that privatization of Gridco or VRA cannot be a wholesale sale of those entities because of the monopoly role they play. There is a lot going on, and I think because Cabinet has passed some of these things, I can actually put it out on air. You know, NETCO and ECG, there's a Cabinet approval for the two to be merged. Then there is also a Cabinet approval for VRA Hydro and BU Authority to become one. So you're going to have BU Authority and VRA, which is Volta River Authority, as one entity. The government has stripped the VRA Thermal as a separate entity. So when the documents and the normal parliamentary processes and all the documents and the laws are done, we are going to have one entity that will be a BPA, BU Power Authority, and Volta River Authority as one entity. And we are going to have ECG and NETCO as one entity. And these things are things that government have passed has given the Cabinet approval for these processes to go ahead. So when you now strip out some of and with Gridco, you see, Gridco carries a dual function. There is the function of being the transmission company, but Gridco also plays a role which is more like a market administrator, which is the dispatch of power and also looking at all these other auxiliary technical wheeling that they do. And some of us are of the view that these things need to be streamlined. And if you're able to take some of these powers away from some of these institutions, it will be okay to privatize some of them, not necessarily selling them 100%, but be able to bring in private sector participation as a minority stake on some of these institutions.
Okay, well, just to establish the fact that what's the name? Ben Boachi indicated, it's just an outlier of some of the things that you have mentioned. So you also made reference to what the private sector can do, just as all of us here have talked about as well. So there is a portion or a part of the problem private sector can solve, but not wholesale lifting to the private sector.
But you see, there's a point he made that for me is also important.
Okay.
You see? So the issue, for example, if you were to take ECG, you know, we have a model. Look at GOIL. You know, GOIL, government has shares in it, but we floated it in the stock, our stock exchange, and private sector has bought into that. I think it's 49.51 in terms of the shareholding. So we can do that with ECG. But the challenge with ECG and trying to do those things would be that we must first make sure that the books of ECG are good. You understand? There are certain conditions that you will need to meet to be able to be listed on the stock exchange. Part of it is your financial health. I get the point making. Yeah. So we can get to do all those things. Government can decide maybe on its own to say that, look, on the basis of this, and I will take over all the liabilities of ECG in terms of debt and every other thing, and take it as what do you call it, the debt of central government, and then leave ECG to have a very good, nice book, and they say, okay, on the strength of this, we are floating shares on the stock exchange. So you can do those things, and there are things that we have seen the GOIL model work and work very well. We have institutional funding that we can use. Look, what prevents, for example, SNIT, that has been investing in what they call it,
real estate,
to take a stake in the distribution sector. What prevents NAT, with all the monies they have, to invest in that? These are institutional funding that you can use to be able to buy stakes on the stock exchange. Because if you take even GOIL, you have BOST, having been a shareholder at GOIL. So these things can be done. It's just that we must do it in a very transparent manner. And we should not do it like what we did with the PDS. But we should do it in a transparent manner.
All right.
Yes.